Then you moved from to DreamWorks and you worked on Prince of Egypt. Tell me the genesis of Spirit. How did that come about and how did you get on board on the project and what year was that?
I remember being given a very thick kind of novella that John Fusco had written. I think it was 1999.
Hmm.
And, uh, please read this. And Jeffrey is thinking about making a Western. And it was just kind of weird and just murmurings of things. Oh, Hans Zimmer is doing some music. Yeah, it was just kind of scattered. And then Jeffrey came in and we chatted and he said, I want to do a film about a horse. I want to do a film showing the opening of the West from the point of view of the horse. And I thought, okay, uh, why not? I love horses. Um, I ended up buying a horse and still have him. It was, you know, a really wonderful challenge. And he said, I know they're really hard, to draw. I said, well, quadrupeds are all challenging, horses particularly, because if you see horses badly animated, you just know instinctively something anatomically is off. And but I was very, very positive about it. I said, well, yeah, I'd love it. Let's do that. And slowly but surely, more talk, more ideas of what the story could be. Meeting with John Fusco, as I said, wonderful gentleman, great to work with, so knowledgeable about the West and native culture. So he was such a real gem to have as a writer and as a collaborator. And you know, the story was so big, we had to kind of break it down a bit. And this is the whole journey with storyboarding and creating the story. We had to drop things, we had to combine things. I was working with a different director at the time, and sometimes the studios do this thing where it's kind of, we're going to put you guys together and we're going to hope for the best. It's a marriage,
Yeah.
and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I really just thought, okay, let's see how it goes. And I could tell things were not great, but I wanted to be a good sport. And then the story was just not moving forward in a great way. And I lobbied to get Kelly back on working with me on the story, and he did. Uh, the other director moved on, and that was, just the way it was. I've been in that position too, so I know
Right.
how it feels. But it was what was best for the story. And then we really, came up with, we only have so much screen time. We can't use this one uh, idea about a frontiersman that we had originally. We had to let that go. And then we focused more on the story between Spirit and Little Creek, which was more satisfying
Yeah.
anyway. And we had great artists on board. What can I tell you? James Baxter was uh, in charge of the animation on Spirit, which he was so brilliant. All the animators were brilliant. I enjoyed working with them. We had a big crew,
Yeah.
and the challenge was there. But boy, I think we met it. And I really have to say too, at one point we were struggling with talking horses. And this is the time when you got to give in to what the better idea is. And once again, Brenda Chapman, we had a screening and she just said, well, what if the horses don't talk? Yeah, what if they don't? That would be much better, because you would be seeing the pantomime and the thinking process.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey said, yeah, well, that's the way we're going. And I think it was very liberating and well done, beautifully done by the animators. This was not a character that needed to be, you got to find those right movies that it'll work well in that context.
Yeah.
But this was more poetic, and that's what I loved about it. We were trying to take it to another level with the music, with the scope of the film being widescreen, give it a
Yeah,
majesty it had. So yeah,
it certainly did, and I think, at least with me, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people, what resonated with me the most was the fact that the horses didn't talk. I mean, that was just such a majestic thing. And as a kid, I've ridden horses like all the way up to galloping, and
wonderful.
that and that seeing the movement of those animals, um, it was a long time ago for me, but I could tell that how real they looked. Like it was just it was breath. It was they're just majestic animals. Like you look at them and you're like, wow.
Yeah,
They've got this posture and the way they carry themselves, and it's just such confidence, you know, and you guys really nailed it. And I remember when I first got exposed to Spirit was when the first trailer came out, which was the opening of the film, and that just
yeah,
blew me away. Like the eagle sequence of just
yeah.
looking down, and I think at that time you guys had Robert Redford's voice, I think, in the trailer.
I,
Um,
you know, I
if
can't
I'm
re
not mistaken.
we even, I pitched to Brad Pitt. We had a lot of
Yeah.
different ideas, but Matt Damon, we landed on that. Jeffrey really liked his voice. And I dare say, regardless of the great job he did, you probably didn't even need it, People really were able to get the
Yeah.
whole feeling of the film, but and so the dialogue was very, it was few and far between with him
Mhm.
his commentary. But, the music was a joy. Working with Bryan Adams was
Amazing.
fantastic. What a great guy. Really wonderful, person to have arrived at, because there we pitched to a lot of different musicians, and, he was just the right guy at the right time, and, put his whole heart into it. He worked beautifully with, Hans Zimmer, again, just a genius of a
Yeah.
guy, wonderful to work with. So, you get that kind of quality and ability, and Jeffrey very much believed in the movie, and it was, you know, the heartache is when these movies come out, what they're up against, what the weekend is gonna be. I cannot tell you, Jawad, what a you just wanna leave town, you don't wanna deal with it, "What's it doing? What's this?" Yeah, it's like, "Oh my god. Did we do well? Did we not?" I mean, we didn't by today's standards, we had a pretty decent weekend,
Yeah.
but it was not what they had projected by, a few like 5,000,000 or whatever it was. And, I just I felt it needed more. I felt, there were things from publicity standpoints that I wish they could have done. And I couldn't put myself into that territory. I couldn't have a big opinion, or Kelly and I. Um, so it finds its own journey. And the main thing is, here we are, all these years later, people
Yes.
been touched by the movie. That's all I care about. Young man who was not even born, maybe by the time the movie came out, decided not to take his own life. I, c- I'm at peace with it. If it had gotten the Oscar, I was there when, the Oscar went to Spirited Away. Even
Oh,
that
that's
to me
right.
was
Right.
like, what are the odds of two movies even sounding like it was crazy. And so I thought, okay, it just wasn't gonna happen, because you can say, well, what would have happened to my career if I had won an Oscar? Who knows? I think the universe, there's a wisdom that I have to trust that's bigger than box office, bigger than all of that. So
Yeah. And to add to what you just said, who knows what would have happened if you had won the Oscar? Possibly a lot of great things,
yeah,
but at the same time, you just don't know what else could have happened that couldn't have happened that's already happened that is good for you now. So you just never know.
I know, and I again, without being redundant, I'm grateful for what I've been able to
You're
do.
not being redundant,
It's
yeah.
it's like I was just a kind of a shy little weirdo kid who loved, I didn't play with dolls. I had frogs and lizards and drove my sisters crazy and drew all the time. So, I feel so blessed that I was able to follow my instincts.